If you preach the gospel in all aspects, with the exception of the issues that deal specifically with your time, you are not preaching the gospel at all. Martin Luther.
Are you aware of how vast the pornography industry has become? Did you know that porn industry revenue now exceeds $10 billion a year? Or that 300 new pornographic websites come online each day? Or that 70% of all pornographic materials fall into the hands of minors, and the average age of first exposure to pornography in this country is 8 years old. Now, we'd like to think that Christians don't have the same struggles as people who have not come to Christ. But the truth is that many men, women, and children within our church congregations, including pastors, worship leaders, and others, struggle with pornography and sexual impurity. One example of this comes from a survey that showed that 50% of Promise Keeper attendees viewed pornography in the week before the event. A survey taken back in 1995 showed that more than 60% of men from the 12 leading denominations admitted to struggling with sexual impurity. That was before the explosive growth of the Internet. What do you think those numbers would be like today? Unfortunately, we in the church have often failed to address these issues on a personal level. Relatively few churches even offer biblical counseling to those struggling with sexual impurity. In the next few minutes, you're going to hear testimonies from Christians who have found true freedom from sexual impurity through an internet-based ministry called Setting Captives Free. Their shame has been replaced with a sincere desire to help those who are also suffering. And their silence has been replaced with a wonderful witness of their deliverance from pornography, lust, and sexual addiction.
It was a cycle of, once I started it, it was something I couldn't get away from. It's like my life was going in the wrong direction.
It was wrong. I had that conviction upon me, yet at the same time it was greatly exciting.
And we saw this tattered up, torn magazine in a ditch somewhere. We went and picked it up, and inside it were these images.
When we got the internet in our home, those temptations, that sin that's in the heart.
And that led to a 15-year involvement with pornography.
We did lots of fighting, and things just were really bad.
I hated myself for what I had done.
I was in bondage to it, and you don't just walk out of a prison cell.
Our marriage was struggling, and I couldn't figure out why. I tried to be the perfect wife.
Because I didn't really love her. I didn't love anybody. I didn't love anything. I didn't really feel anything. The way I describe it is my heart was just black.
I would repent, pray, and tell God I wouldn't do it anymore, and the next thing I know, but it'd be worse.
How was I going to be that moral authority figure for my children? There's no way to walk that line and to bring sin into your marriage. It'll demolish you.
All that time I had this nagging feeling like this is really something I should not be doing.
She had just had enough. She had had enough of my lies and deceit and hiding and manipulation and impurity.
I grew up in a situation where my family never talked about sex. I never heard a word about sex from my mom or my dad. It just kind of was, what you hear in school and what you come up with on your own and what you find under your brother's bed. And so I was very afraid to talk about sex with my wife. And there was a lot of expectations and a lot of frustrations because we didn't communicate. There were times when she found pornography shortly after we were married. And she came to me directly and was hurt by it. She always kind of had a question, I think, about the computer. She wasn't real sure what was going on there. She didn't know as much about the computer as I did. And I took advantage of that. I really did. I used the computer to hide things. I would, do certain things that I knew she couldn't find in the computer. I think there were some issues with, like I mentioned before, just with some frustration that I had in our sexual relationship. And so during the pregnancy, maybe at times when she wasn't so interested, I became desiring other things, and I got more into pornography at that time. But also at that time, I was in a situation where I began to flirt more with some of the girls at work. I do believe it was the pornography and the continual lust for more of it that led me not to just look at images, but to maybe even pursue someone in that way. And it led me to eventually commit adultery.
I first encountered pornography around the age of 11 or 12 in the drugstore. You know, they kept pornography at that time on a very low shelf, and so anybody could reach up and browse through the magazines. For a boy of 11 or 12 who's just beginning puberty and just discovering girls, it was something that was exciting, and it was touted by our peer group as well as something that was exciting. You know, look at this. You know, you want insight into women, you want insight into girls. Look at this stuff. All through high school and college, we knew that it was forbidden fruit. You know, I had that sense of guilt, and so I kept it hidden. I never told anybody what I was doing, and it kept on luring us back because it was this thrilling thing. We had to go and we had to do it in secret. I'm a second career pastor of a church, and so I began my trade as a tractor trailer mechanic, and again, pornography was everywhere, and the desire also to live out those fantasies that were being created by the viewing of this material.
As a child, I knew my father would go into a room and lock the door, and curiosity got the better part of me, and eventually I found out that he had a stash of pornography. And I got to the point where I would take one or two out, and he never seemed to notice, and I'd take out a few more. And about the age of 13, 14, I got saved, and of course all this time I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I took all my stuff out and burned it. And I thought that would be the end of it. And it wasn't long before I was back borrowing more. And I met my husband, and before we got married, I got rid of everything. I thought, well, we're getting married, that'll solve it. And it didn't. And then the internet came along, and that's when the things got really bad for me, because I discovered there was an awful lot out there, and it was really easy to get to. And I finally got to the point where one night, after cleaning up the computer, because that would take hours sometimes to clean it all up, I just said, Lord, I can't keep doing this. There's got to be an answer.